creative sector has been hard hit by COVID-19. Dependent on audiences and performances, this sector has seen many creatives lose their gigs and jobs with little or no support from the state. Many artists also work as freelancers in an industry notorious for its poor working conditions and lack of security and stability. To discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the gig economy, I'm joined by two of South Africa's amazing creatives. Lebohang Mashile is a well-known South African poet, producer, playwright and actress, and she's got works as long as my arm. Also joining me this morning is Mixblaus, an artist who is blowing up South Africa's music and fashion scene. He's also a well-known songwriter. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you. Mixblaus, let me start with you. You have been in the business for a long time. You've traversed it both as a commentator on the arts. You have become a fully fledged artist. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on your career that has kind of just, begun to blow up both here and internationally?
Obviously, because all of the venues are closed and public gatherings are not allowed, basically artists are not able to do their work, and most of us earn a living by performing. Not a lot of artists make money from selling music, so it's really, we're in a place where we actually just don't know how we're going to make a living. And it's especially so for artists like myself who tend to work overseas a lot. I was supposed to actually leave next week for France for a tour there, and we obviously can't do that. And the problem is that with the relief that the government has put forward, if your performances were overseas, you are not covered by the criteria that the government has set out in that sense.
Now, Lebo, let me bring you in. Mixblaus has spoken about the impact of a lack of income, or a loss of income rather, because a lot of gigs are based overseas. You, of course, work both domestically and internationally. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on your immediate work? I saw social media posts from you, for example, demanding that people who owe you money as a freelancer start paying up, because obviously now those monies are more necessary than ever. Has there been a sense of solidarity between people who have hired your services, who realize now that that cash is actually really, really important?
Well, I think for many of us in the gig economy, like entrepreneurs and self-employed people around the world, we spend a lot of time after we've provided our services chasing money. So, I mean, the first month of the lockdown for me was spent chasing invoices for work that I'd been doing basically since the beginning of the year. Yeah. 80% of my clients have paid. I still have one invoice that is outstanding, believe it or not, from February. I mean, and this is a constant reality that we must contend with. So our labor is not protected, and we struggle to be able to get our clients, whether it's corporate clients, sometimes even public sector clients, to pay on time, you know? So, I mean, there's a real, it feels like at an institutional level, there's a lack of understanding of how we work and how cash flow works for people like us, you know? So, I mean, aside from that, that's already just for jobs that have been done and money that's owed. What a lot of artists we found ourselves in the position, you know, where when the lockdown was announced, all of our work going forward as well was suspended, you know? So, I mean, for many artists who are touring internationally, I mean, that meant immediately, like, tours were canceled. Like somebody like Gregory Makoma posted on Facebook, you know, celebrated dancer, choreographer, founder of Vuyane Dance Theatre, that he had to cancel a 2-year tour of Europe. He had dates booked into 2021 that are now, you know, suspended in the air indefinitely. And I mean, he's a founder of an entire company. So all of the dancers and choreographers and musicians who work with him, their lives are also suspended in the air as well. So
absolutely, a lot of your work is collaborative. So there's obviously a lot of people that feed off the artists performing, or different gigs being played. Let me just go to what the Arts and Culture Minister announced, and this was on March 25th, where he said the state had committed 150 million rand toward a relief fund to assist artists and athletes and technical support and what he called the core ecosystem. Mixed Flowers, let me bring you in here. You already indicated because you work overseas, you were not able to tap that financial assistance. Have you been able to get any assistance from the state in terms of any of the measures that they have rolled out? Do you qualify in any way, be it for you know, the Arts Council, this relief fund, or even the COVID-19, you know, what is this thing, grant that has been made available?
So far, I haven't come across anything that I qualify for, basically. And as you know, we're not even allowed to contribute to UIF, so you can't even claim that. And as Lebu was saying, there are a lot of people, you know, people tend to see you as an artist performing on stage and assume it's just you, but there are a lot of people, support staff, that you are also paying for, that have also lost their income now. It's really a difficult position. We have no clue how we're going to make money. And when you look at the criteria that government sets out, it's to say they can only provide relief for you if you can prove that there are gigs that have been cancelled. Now, you know, when you're working as an artist, you can get a booking today that's for next week. That's generally how you'll make money. You hardly find where gigs have been planned ahead by a couple of months. It's very rare. So when you say to people you can only claim relief if you've got gigs that have been cancelled right now, a lot of people are not going to be able to claim any funding from that sort of criteria. So I think government needs to start to really understand how the sector works. Because so far, one of the things the minister said was artists should claim revenue from SAMRO. Most artists don't have their music playing on radio, so there is no SAMRO money to claim. And what I've been saying in discussions with both my colleagues and fans is to say, you know, what the criteria clearly shows is that the government doesn't seem to understand that artists exist beyond celebrities. Not everyone who is an artist is a celebrity. So a lot of people that work in community theater, whatever it may be, they really just haven't been considered in the way that these criteria have been set out.
Lebo, let me bring you in here. Do you share Mixed Flowers' view that the majority of artists in the gig economy have not been considered, and there's a particular lack of understanding for how, you know, creatives work and what the ecosystem is, and this fund of 150 million is simply not reaching everybody?
I think people in South Africa and globally do not understand how many creative professionals make up the gig economy. And Mixed Blouse is absolutely right. The people that we see on our television screens, the stars that we know, are only a small percentage of the people who make up the gig economy. We're talking about administrative staff, managers, the financial end of it, the marketing end of it, technical support staff, crew, highly skilled people who are also without work at this time, the majority of whom are also without work. So, I mean, Mixed Blouse is right. There's a fundamental lack of understanding about how we work. When government put out the fact that they were going to be using its allocated budget, so the 150 million comes from the national budget that has been allocated for the Department of Sports and Arts and Culture, right? And we were told right at the beginning of the lockdown that in order to apply for the relief funding, we had to, like Mixed Blouse said, we had to provide supporting documentation of the work that we had lost. And like he said, for many of us, you know, sometimes the work comes and the only guarantee that you really have is a gentleman's agreement. you know? Or sometimes, I mean, there is paperwork, there is a paper trail, but how do you chase invoices, contracts, supporting documentation in the middle of a lockdown where businesses have been closed and financial offices are not open? So for many of us, I mean, the briefs were put out and the deadline was, we were given the deadline of like 10 days to 2 weeks, you know, in the middle of a lockdown where people's offices are closed. How do you get the supporting documentation, you know, in time? So, I mean, I put in an application. It was rejected because we didn't meet the deadline by something like 30 minutes, you know. But and for most of the artists that I know in theater, performance artists, writers, people in television support staff, a lot of people, for whatever reason, our applications have been turned down. I think there's a fundamental problem that when you have a sector that is as expansive as ours is, that employs thousands upon thousands of people just nationally, right? When you get a paltry response like 5,000 applications, that means that you haven't really scratched the surface, you know?
Absolutely. Let me hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to end up that conversation, but we're also going to talk about how artists are recalibrating their work in the new normal. Don't go anywhere.